this isn't a serious thing. Like, I don't have to come and study to be gay. I don't have to, learn all the proper codes properly and learn what handkerchief I have to wear and all those things. It's just you doing what you're doing.
Hello, I am Kay Anderson, and you are listening to Lost Spaces, the podcast that mourns the death of queer nightlife. Every episode, I talk to a different person about a venue from their past, the memories that they created there, and the people that they used to know. So this week, I learned a new word, and that word is thelephobia, which is the fear of nipples. And why am I telling you about this? Well, it just so happens that this week's guest, Dr. Joshua Lobb, who is a senior lecturer in creative writing at the University of Wollongong and our very first doctor on this show, happens to have a fear of, well, nipples. But not just any nipples. We're talking like really big nipples, like, bullets sticking out of someone's chest. The kind of nipples, in fact, that you would find on the bartenders who worked at Sydney's The Albury Hotel, which just coincidentally happens to be the venue that we're talking about on today's episode. Yay! In this episode, we talk all about gay fashions of the late 80s and the early 90s, being intimidated by a certain type of coolness, and a casual bit of friendly groping. Really? Okay. Let's get into it.
I grew up in a small country town, and I obviously always knew who I was, but I didn't articulate it in any kind of way. And I remember being at about 16 or 17, going down to Sydney by myself for the day. And so the CBD of Sydney is sort of pointed towards the harbour, but the Oxford Street is a kind of tangent that goes off it, and I would never walk up there when I visited at any other time. And I remember thinking, I'm going to walk up Oxford Street and see what it's like in that universe. And I wandered up and I saw the Midnight Shift, and I saw a couple of other places, and they had those photos out on the outside of men with sort of vaguely staring eyes and leather straps sort of looking out through those photos. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is my big moment. And I remember walking past the Albury and seeing all those photos and thinking, I could be in there one day. So I think that was the kind of beginning of me fleeing.
But so on this day, when you were going down the street, were you like, I'm going to go in, or I'm just like, I am?
Oh,
just
no.
God, no.
Oh, God, no. This was full reconnaissance. It was just,
Okay.
Is it possible for me to do this thing? And it was all like, it was full on heart palpitations. It was really, got to be really careful. I'm just looking. I'm not, I didn't linger. I just sort of walked past and took it in, and then I would walk past again to look at the photos again and walk past just to see if I could do this thing.
And had you prepared a story in case you ran into someone that you knew?
Oh, I didn't even think that I would run into somebody I knew. I just thought it was so outside my universe. So it was just more, I felt completely invisible. I didn't think that anybody would be looking at me. So I just sort of,
that's
thought I
interesting.
was sneaking in, yeah.
But weren't you a teenager? Didn't you just think the world revolved around you?
No, I thought I was really invisible, I think, as a teenager.
Oh,
So, yeah.
that's interesting.
I mean, I was the star of my own private show,
Obviously,
but I didn't think that anybody else in the real world was looking at me. But
it was like a sleeper hit on some cable channel that they'd find out
exactly.
about in a few years.
Full-on cult classic. Yeah, that was me.
Oh, that makes sense. So you ogled? Is it ogled? No, maybe that's too strong a word.
No, it was much more than that, because it was much more clandestine. It was much sort of out of the corner of my eye. I kind of...
And yet you imprinted those images into your brain.
Absolutely. And at the time, there was the newspaper, the Sydney Star Observer, and in them there were more of these endless photos of people in bar with leather straps across their chests. And I don't think I picked one up, but I remember looking at that and thinking I could take that home with me. And then I thought, no, I couldn't do that. And then I went straight back down the street and went home. We caught the train home and,
It's so much easier for kids these days, isn't it? They can just clear their cookies and then no one knows that they've looked at this stuff. But if you took a magazine home, there was real risk there.
Oh, no, absolutely. And also, I remember I had a kind of sort of shrine of things that I would collect, and it was like I went to a student rep camp, student leadership kind of thing that you do when you're at school, and there was some other boy there who sent me a little note which said, "Great to meet you, let's catch up sometime," and I kind of hid that away, I can't remember, and those kinds of things. So I had all of that stuff, but nothing kind of more intense than that. But in some ways I was also lucky because like nobody in my town, I mean, they probably did know that I was gay, but that language wasn't used. Mm-hmm. And it was that's just Joshua. That's what Joshua does. And I was pretty confident. So I didn't have a kind of thing that I was shy or anything. I just did what I did. Whereas I think now growing up, because everything's so public and the kind of concept of gay is known much more, I think I would have got a lot more shit, and I think I just got away with it because nobody really knew that that's what gay people did in a certain kind of way.
So are you saying they just accepted you at face value? I thought you were originally saying that they knew you were gay, but they just didn't care.
No, absolutely. The first thing you said, that it was more about this idea that they didn't even know what that was. It was just that's the weird thing that Joshua does. And because I just didn't care that other people thought that it was weird, I just did what I wanted to do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was kind of nice. And I remember when I did come to Sydney, I had lots of friends who had grown up in the city, and they'd had a different experience because people had said, "Oh, that's what people do on Oxford Street," or "That's gay," whereas I'd never been pointed at and said that's gay. It was just what I did. But in my head, I still knew I had this thing. I would never say the actions that I'm doing are queer or gay or anything like that. I had to kind of hide the actual word of it. And then the idea of moving to Sydney was that I was able to go, I can say this thing.
And so, on this first day when you were like 16 or whatever and you first traipsed down Oxford Street, how did you know that Oxford Street was where you had to go?
I think it's that strange thing that you do where you pick up any cues or clues from anything. So there must have been something I'd seen on the news that said the gay and lesbian Mardi Gras has gone down Oxford Street, and I'd lock that away. And so one day I'm going to go to Oxford Street. So there was a lot of that collecting of those are the things, did you know that George Michael is gay? Oh, like collecting those kinds of little secrets.
Of information.
Yeah. And then and it was all quietly filed away. So I think that's probably what it was.
And then this first time going down, you get the impression that you're going to definitely need to buy a leather strap.
Yes.
And other than that, did you feel like, oh yeah, this is it for me? Or did you feel underwhelmed, or a third thing I can't think of?
Oh, no, it was not underwhelmed. It was very exciting. Yeah, the leather strap, obviously, because I've mentioned it like 8 times now, it perturbed me quite greatly. I didn't understand what that meant. And it was funny, because also what I didn't have confidence about was my body. So there was a bit of kind of, you have to be shirtless and all those sorts of things. So there was that. And this is kind of interesting because one of the things the Albury taught me, and I'm kind of cutting to the punchline, is that you could be whoever you wanted to be. But at this point, I just thought, okay, this is what it is. This is what I'm going to do. And it was very, very exciting because obviously it also meant that I got to kiss men and I got to do rude things with men. So I was like, I gladly accept this if I get to do all those other things that I've been dreaming about. So, I just went, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to. And I did sort of, when I first came to Sydney, I did think, oh, God, I've got to wear a tight T-shirt. And I bought a couple of tight T-shirts and those kinds of things. And then went, no, I don't have to do that. And thank God for that. So it's all right.
Did you douse yourself in cologne?
Oh, no. I did do a bit of glitter for a while.
There's so many recovering glitter addicts out there.
Oh, it's horrible. And it haunts you for the rest of your life. Like years later, you find still inside your ear a little bit of glitter. It's just hell. I do remember that in an op shop I bought a gold lame kind of zip-up shirt, and I wore that to my first Mardi Gras. I remember that, thinking that's what you had to do. And then I remember thinking it was so disgustingly scratchy and hot, and it was, I just learned never ever to wear that ever again. We live and learn.
Where are we? So you went to Oxford Street. You had this experience of recon, figuring out where things were, how the homosexuals lived. You went back to your town. How long until you then moved?
About a year, I'd say, or a year and a half. So, yeah, at 18, bang, going to university. And I chose the university that's nearest to Oxford Street, so I could be part of that world.
So what was it like in that year?
Oh, I had lots of other things going on in my life. My mum died a few years before that, so there was lots of other weird things going on in my life. So that was the kind of hope that I had. I had lots of not so great things going on in my life. So it was just this kind of, just be patient, just wait, and soon you'll be able to do this thing. When I was having a bad time, it was like, just hold your breath. Soon this will happen. So it was kind of nice. It was like almost like a security thing or a hope, something to hold on to. I think a lot of my teenage years were just waiting until I got to be what I wanted to be. And we're talking 1989, 1990. So, it was just a different world in terms of that. I've got students now who were gay in high school. They come to university and they've been already gay for like 3 or 4 years. And I think, God, that just would not have happened in my universe. So lucky them. But also this strange thing of going, I kind of like the fact that I had this private thing for a while.
You got to marinate.
Yeah. I didn't even know who, Liza Minnelli was until I moved to Sydney. So, it wasn't like I was marinating that well. It was just collecting bits of information.
So Liza Minnelli, is that like the thing that everyone needs to know? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
the thing. I mean, the person. I didn't mean to.
You better be careful on that. No, I don't. You know what I mean by that is that I'd collected lots of things about what it meant to be gay, but I didn't know. Oh, for example, I didn't know about drugs in any way. I didn't know about. I knew a lot of musicals, but I didn't know all the things the broader variety of things. I do remember being very young and going, oh no, I didn't know.
And did you feel shame then? It sounds like you were in a hurry to fit in.
I think I was, but not in a... that's an interesting question. I suppose I was. Oh, gosh. It wasn't a very long time, but there was a period of time of thinking, I've got to dress in the right way, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And then I did get out of that fairly quickly and worked out that I could be the thing that I was before and be okay and, whatever it turned out to be. But I think because the person who I was couldn't be articulated, certainly in my first year of being in Sydney, I had to articulate it. And so the language that I picked up to articulate it was sometimes around that particular scene, leather straps / tight T-shirts / drag shows /
tight T-shirts. Yeah, I guess it's like a rehearsal, right? Like, this is where I want to be ultimately. These are the things that I need to do. And then one by one, realizing that there's a reason you weren't those things before.
Yeah, that's a very, very good way of articulating what that year for me was like. But this space that I was in terms of the actual, what we're talking about today, the Albury, was that space where I tried out all of these things, I think. And it was a lovely place to be in terms of learning who to be and learning what things you can discard and what things you can hold together. So it was actually really slightly frayed around the edges, which was nice. It wasn't like one of the really, really cool bars. It wasn't like the big dance loud places. It was pretty squishy bar, like the main bar, very, very narrow place where you stood. So the bar took up most of the room, but then there was sort of narrow edge of the room where everybody stood. So when you come in, there was kind of, as you moved through, you got groped by everybody as you went through, which was very exciting.
Wait, this is a good thing, is that what you're saying?
Well, at the time it was, yeah. I suppose now you could think, maybe, but I didn't. I know I enjoyed it. I say that, yes, that was a good thing. It was certainly good for 18-year-old me.
So I've taken you all over the place. You moved to Sydney when you were 18. You chose a university that was close to Oxford Street so you could seep in the culture. Do you remember the first time you went to Oxford Street, after you'd moved?
Yes. I immediately joined the theatre scene when I went to university because, that's obviously where you're going to meet all the gays.
Check.
I made friends with a guy called Stephen who was so debonair, so smart, so sophisticated, and I just thought he was wonderful. And so he was my friend, and he had a best friend called Gabby who, she was that kind of girl that everybody knows, like, kind of thing. And she was great because everybody knew Gabby. So Gabby would say, this is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And there would be some people who I'd go, ooh, hello, in my potential way.
And so in those instances, would you be like, Gabby,
Yeah.
can you introduce me? Or would you take
God, no,
your
no,
own
no.
initiative?
At this point, I was witnessing. I was not participating just yet. And also, I thought that Stephen was this big dreamboat. So I was hanging out with Stephen.
Oh,
And he was Stephen.
Oh, so let's find out about this then. Stephen, was it unrequited?
Oh, no. We, at the cast party of the show that we did, we had a nice moment and we became very good friends, but it was just, there was sort of maybe a week of me thinking, oh, and then him saying, look, this is just what it is. And, it's fine, it's nice, but this is what it is. And me going, oh, okay, that's all right. And it was good because then I got to learn that whoring around is much more fun. And so I got to do that for the first year or longer.
Well done, Stephen, though.
Yeah.
So many people would just be like, I don't like you anymore, bugger off, and just ice you out.
No, he is still a gentleman. He's a lovely, lovely human being. And he's, very much tied up in that first year of just showing me around and looking after me. Because I was also so naive. And there were lots of times where I would kind of go, oh, this man says that he's got blah, 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 and he would go, yeah, not that guy, kind of stuff. So that was good too. So he's probably saved me from a couple of moments. And then, I remember going out with him the second year I was living in Sydney and just kind of going off into the bathroom and doing something and then coming back and, him going, what happened now? So there was, by the end of it, we were very good friends. He looked after me very well. But then also I got to kind of shine in my gayness as the years went on.
So just so we're clear, when you're saying shine in your gayness, you mean being on your knees in a bathroom stall in a pub in Sydney?
Absolutely. That's what I wanted. Certainly. Yeah.
Did you go to Albury on the first night? Do you remember?
Absolutely we did. And that was by far the most, pleasant's not the right word, the funnest place.
So tell me then what your first impression was walking in the door.
I think it was the physical sensation of being groped by everybody as he was sliding in, which again, why I thought, oh, this is nice. So that was my first impression. A second impression was that I knew the songs that they were playing, so that was kind of made me feel a little bit safe.
Oh, yeah.
70s discos and early 80s music was what they were playing, so I was like, oh, I feel okay with this. The drag show was kind of terribly excellent, bit again rough around the edges, and then so that was the first night, and I just remember being in the heat of it, that kind of sense of lots of bodies. It would have been late summer, which is sort of humid and sweaty, but without anyone dancing. It was just kind of sweaty in the space. So that was my initial feeling of it.
And so why was that one the one you preferred over all the others that you went to that night?
The other ones, there were people trying to be cool. Like this one, because it was so small, you couldn't dance in any way. The only dancing you could do was just sort of in the space, tiny, moving that. Yeah, exactly. Rubbing, groping, dancing. What Gabby called bitch dancing, where you just sort of move your shoulders a little bit and just sort of, it's sort of you dancing on the inside. Whereas the other places you had to properly dance, which I didn't feel confident about. And there was a lot more coolness. There was a lot more the leather straps and, all that sort of stuff. So I didn't like that as much, or I didn't feel comfortable in that one. Even then, I thought this has got young people in it, even though I was 18. It had that sense of being young, hot people. I was already too decrepit for it.
Is that because you saw yourself as an older person, or you were threatened by people that you thought were cool?
Oh, I was both. Definitely threatened by anyone at the time I was threatened by them. Now I'm just not, I don't care about them. But I always have felt excluded by coolness because I'm not in any way cool. And, again, that collection of who I was as gay did involve musical theatre and sort of, was that kind of much more, swishy older person, opera-loving person, rather than, young dance party person. Again, I'm being completely honest in this conversation because this is how I worked out who I was. So I did think that I was probably too old for it, in a sense that I was but I wasn't equipped for it. I didn't have the qualities that were required.
Yeah.
Absolutely did not. Whereas the Albury, I thought, I could do this. I could stand here. I could watch this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, open and relaxed and allowing for that. Oh, my God, this is me jumping to another thing. Sorry. But I remember that first night, something else had happened on that very first night. The bartenders were shirtless, obviously, and they had the world's biggest and thickest nipples that I'd ever seen in my life. I just thought, oh, my God, is that what I have to have? Do I have to have really big, thick nipples? And that was, I remember, quite a scary moment for me. I thought, oh, God, I've got really ordinary nipples.
But so hang on. So in this moment, did you think I need to go and train my nipples, or did you think I'm never going to fit in because my nipples aren't the right size?
I think a little bit of both. I was a bit kind of like, how do you do that? Like, do I?
See, I need to admit something now. I didn't realize for a very long time that people with those big nipples weren't just born with those big nipples.
I don't think I knew that until now.
Yeah, because there's like all that training. You can like train your nipples, which just sounds stupid thing to say. It's stretching them and stuff. And that's how they end up with those big nipples. I mean, I don't know how big these nipples were that you're talking about. But...
No, they were massive and they all had them. No, I think I knew that. I think I do know that. And I think I know that in my soul. But I think at the time I thought that they had been hired on the basis of their nipples. So they went and they auditioned all the bar people to go, oh, yep, you can't.
One bartender must have big nipples.
I think that's what I thought. And I do remember, like, 4 or 5 years later saying to my friend Stephen, what was it with the Albury guys and their nipples? Like, what? Like, because I just couldn't admit that I was so freaked out by this. And, yeah, he obviously laughed at me, which is always true.
But did he have an answer for you, or was he just like, you're an idiot?
I think it was something like, I know, like, oh, my God, what ridiculous nipples they had, kind of, But it was like I'd locked that away. Like, I couldn't admit to anybody that I had been not even fetishizing, just, perturbed. I think I was perturbed by them because I didn't how they came about, and certainly I felt inadequate that my nipples were very, very ordinary nipples. But
you size queen.
I didn't train myself into it, so I'm glad I didn't actually go down that road of thinking, shit, what do I do?
How do you? I think I need to find out more about this. And do you need to like maintain? Or like once they're big, are they just big? Or do you have to like pump them up?
I think that as a flatmate of mine once said, you've got to be vigilant. I think there's probably an element of vigilance to it. You've got to actually.
Be bothered.
With that attitude, you would not be working in the Albury. Is what I'm saying to you.
Although I am now thinking about coming out with a line of prosthetic large nipples.
Yeah, that would be good, because then you wouldn't have to do the work. You just attach them on. You could even just get like the lid of a biro and sort of stick them on, make them skin-coloured.
How big were they?
Nobody would know the difference. They were huge, like seriously. They were like pinky fingers. They were like, it was ridiculous. They were huge. They were noticeably, palpably huge things. And I was worried about them.
Usually my conversations are about the first time like you've seen a penis or you've held a breast, and this time it's like the first time I saw a massive nipple.
Yeah, like the other stuff I was prepared for. I knew that penises were going to be involved in this experience that I was going to have moving to Sydney, but I didn't know it was going to involve enormous nipples. Like, I hadn't been prepared for that. There was nothing on, the gay people I'd seen, like Are You Being Served people on television. John Inman didn't go on about his nipples. Yeah, seeing my first penis is fine. Yeah.
Wait, did John Inman go on about penises?
Well, he did. Well, he went on about picking up sailors and things, I did think that I would have a lot of sex with sailors, and I don't think I ever did.
Oh.
Don't think I ever did. Yeah.
I mean, there's still time.
Yeah, there is time. There is time.
What were we saying? So nipples. So what was it like settling in? You said earlier that you realised now that you were never a city person. But at the time, were you just throwing yourself in?
Yes, absolutely throwing myself in. settling in was that you would go there and you would walk in and get a bit groped, and then if you had to go to the bathroom later on, you get a little bit groped a little bit more. Learning how to buy drinks was exciting. I know that sounds silly, but just the idea of, like what are acceptable things to buy. And, people had particular drinks that you had to get. I can't remember what they were now, vodka and cranberry or something. I don't know, something silly like that.
I am still no good at ordering drinks. In busy bars,
when you've got
no
more than 3 people and you think, I can't remember what anybody said. Also, if the person comes up to you and they've got enormous nipples, like, you're going to forget all the orders that you've got in your head. Like, what are you going to do?
Language disappears from your brain, everything.
Exactly. You just
go on.
I'll just have a vodka and nipples. No, wait a minute. No. But it was a really nice thing to go and be there. And it was reasonably passive. Like, it was watching a drag show. It was standing there, bouncing up and down to the 70s and 80s music in a very measured, tiny way. And then there was the excitement thing of course, the bar also was sort of almost circular. So you could look across the bar and see other patrons. So there was a lot of being able to ogle other people. So check out that person, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think I've picked up anybody from the Albury for quite some time, but I spent a lot of time thinking about what it would be like to pick someone up. And I think probably it was about 6 months in. I was having sex in other places. I was at university, so I was having sex with other people, but not at the Albury, not with sort of random strangers.
So you were having sex with people that you knew through your course, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or through the theatre. That's all you do when you're doing plays. Yeah.
Oh, I need to join a theatre company.
Yeah, God, absolutely. Jeez, that was just rampant. But yeah, I do remember picking someone up probably about 6 months in, like a stranger. That was really exciting to go, oh, yeah, cool. I don't even know anything about this person.
And so prior to that, had you kind of moralised it and been like, oh, I'm not into one-night stands, I'm only going to sleep with people?
No. I just was getting sex where I could get sex. I wanted to have one-night stands, but I just didn't know how to do it. So I did a lot of kind of looking, and I did a terrible thing where I would kind of look at somebody and then I'd look down, like, as like Princess Diana kind of thing, to try and be...
Is she famous for looking down? What?
Well, she's famous for kind of doing that weird thing where she would look up, through her eyes, that she would sort of be shy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And, obviously, what I mean? So I would sort of not fan myself literally, but I would kind of, pretend to be a bit sort of...
Be coy.
Coy.
Yeah.
And I think Princess Diana is known for being coy. And that obviously did not work as a pickup strategy. Really, really stupid thing to do. But I did that for a while. And then I think Gabby introduced me to... I said that guy, and Gabby, obviously, who knew everybody, introduced me to that person. There was a guy who I really, 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 really had the hots for, who would sit at the other bar, and he was always there. And whenever the song... Do you know the song Single Bed by Nusha Fox? It's a 70s disco. No. She's from Adelaide. It's a Single Bed. It's the best song ever. Australian 70s, yeah. It's amazing song, and it's about I can't take you home with me because I've only got a single bed is the kind of disco.
She's not even trying.
It was so good. No, because of course she was saying really come home to me, but she was saying, oh, but you can't come home. That, it was all that sort of thing. Anyway, this guy who I had the total hots for, whenever that song came on, he would mouth the words to Single Bed. And I was like, oh, that's so exciting. I don't know why. Again, it was just that's so. But I never, ever, ever. I did become sort of friendly with him. But I never got to sleep with him.
Oh, so he's the one that got away.
Yeah, well,
I mean, in terms of a shag. But...
Yeah.
So the most important follow-up question I have then is how many inches were his nipples?
Oh, I've never seen that guy's nipples.
Not even through his T-shirt?
No. Stephen had nice nipples, though. I'll put that on record. Not enormous ones, just like normal nipples.
Wait, normal nipples? What are we saying?
Well, I can show you, but I don't think it's appropriate in a podcast.
But let's not use the word normal.
Sorry, you're right.
Common, maybe?
Yeah.
Bog standard?
Bog standard, yeah, standard, should we say? Even that we're probably not get away with. He had the same nipples as me, let's put it that way. The ones that I were used to, he had.
So you just like things the same as you?
Well, at this point, I've learned things differently later on, but yeah, at this point, I was, again, still trying to work out what I was wanting to do. Then later on, it was whatever, like huge nipples, tiny nipples, it was anything. Sounds like I've got a nipple fetish. I really don't. I'm quite scared of them, actually. But yeah, obviously.
How can you be scared of nipples?
Well, the enormous ones, like that, I had a traumatizing experience with these guys in the Albury.
How is
And
it
their enormous nipples.
traumatizing?
I didn't know what to do with them. I think, again, I'm going back to the word surprise. I kind of planned out this is how everything else happens. You can kind of map out what it's going to be like to have sex with a man, but if you are a man, because you know what your body does and so you know what their body is going to do, I thought. Well, I could prepare myself for that, but I had not prepared myself for enormous nipples, is what I'm saying. I just hadn't factored into any of my narratives that I constructed for myself. Again, later on, I did learn that bodies do different things that I was also unprepared for, but I learned how to deal with those things.
With lots of poppers, yeah.
Yeah, but I only kissed one person before I moved to Sydney, so I didn't even really know what kissing was like.
And like growing into your queerness, your gayness, however you want to talk about it,
Yep.
was it, I'm in Sydney, the doors of the closet are just ripped off, or was it a more gradual process?
Oh, no. I'm in Sydney. The doors are ripped off. I don't need to see anybody from my old world ever again. This is who I am now. I only had in my family my father and my brother. For my father, it's this huge, great... again, I'm saying that like this is a silly thing. I'm very, very lucky, but it became a status symbol. Oh, yes, I've got a gay son. So there was never an issue with that. He would drop me out as to show that he was kind of in the world. He knew about the world because he had a gay son. So I didn't have any trouble coming out to my family. Yeah, it's weird. Very strange.
But so how was the coming out? Was it him telling you that you were gay, or...?
Oh, it's quite complicated. And I suppose this is the time to talk about it. So my mother died when I was 15, but she had a long, slow dying. And one of the conversations that she had before she died was she said, I know you're gay. I know this about you. It's absolutely fine. You're going to be fine in the world. Like, it was a really, it was one of the, I mean, she, like, obviously she's the greatest thing ever. I'm very, very grateful for that. And even then I was like, oh, Mum, what are you talking about? No, I'm not. And then she was like, yeah, look, it's okay. It doesn't matter. And so I was able to quite honestly, that was a really beautiful moment for me to go, yeah, you're right. It's okay. I'm fine. So I think she'd already spoken to my father about it. I never had to officially come out to my father. I came out to my older brother, and we're very close, and my brother is an excellent human being. And he was like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, it was just absolutely, like, there was no drama at all. And so that was also nice. But then, so I don't think I ever actually said anything to my father, but I do remember him saying, I do remember firstly him saying, if you ever have any special friends that you want to bring back from Sydney to stay. And so I was like, oh, okay, thanks, Dad. But I do also remember him saying something like, when I went back for like Easter holidays or something, we bumped into somebody that we knew, and he said, this is, you remember Joshua, he's gay now, or something like that. Like, it was just sort of that kind of, really proud thing. Because it made him, politically savvy to know a gay person or to have a gay son that he allowed.
And to have reared one. I mean,
exactly.
That's the ultimate, right?
That's the jackpot. Yeah, absolutely. So I didn't have to come out to my family, but I do absolutely remember thinking, I'm going to leave school and I'm going to go off and be someone else. And the minute I started at university, like the first thing I did was join the theatre club, and the second thing I joined was the gay society.
Yeah.
It was very, very explicit. This is what I am now.
And was that with the plan, like, I am actually never going to see people that I went to school with again? I'm never going to, like, was it that conscious? Or?
I don't think it was I'm never going to see them again. It was just more like I don't have to be that person that I was at school. I was actually exactly the same person that I was. And I said before, nobody ever called me gay or stigmatized me about that. But it was just more like, I'm going to own this thing. I'm going to be articulate. I couldn't say the words, and now I'm going to say the words. And I'm going to say the words a lot.
Yeah. I'm going to buy like 3 leather straps.
Oh my God, and tight t-shirts,
enhanced.
Yeah, the nipples are going to be huge. I'm going to wear lame tops to Mardi Gras. I'm going to know who Liza Minnelli is. I'm going to learn all the operas, all of that stuff. Yeah, no, definitely. And there was a kind of sense of just, I'm going to own this thing much more.
And so, so in Sydney, you were just like, here I am, hear me roar. Was there ever, this is the wrong term, but I hope you understand where I'm going with this. Was there ever a buyer's remorse?
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely not. But there was a kind of, I'm not going to be that gay. I'm not going to be that person.
Oh.
I can be the musical theatre gay, but I can't be the ultra cool tight t-shirt gay. So there wasn't buyer's remorse. It was just more of a kind of understanding my brand a little bit more.
Your brand?
Well, you know what I mean. If we're talking in this, we used to use the phrase buyer's remorse, so we're already using commercial language here.
Okay. Sorry, I thought you were talking as though you were a TikTok entrepreneur.
Yeah, no. But I'm just using it because we're riffing on a theme here. No, I certainly did go, like, I don't need to be those ones, that person, and I'm not negating any identity. I'm just more like going, that isn't for me. So it was more like just narrowing down who it was. It wasn't that I was going to blindly accept anything that's gay. I was going to be more like, okay, which of these things am I going to collect and which of these things I'm going to discard? And that was a really nice thing to do, to kind of go, oh, I can be these different things. I think that's, and certainly not buyer's remorse in terms of I got to have sex with men. Like, wow, there was never any buyer's remorse there.
Oh, I think I did have buyer's remorse with that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I think it was more along the lines of I didn't appreciate that you could have sex without feelings. And not like, oh, I think everyone should be in love with me, but that whole thing of learning that people might never ever want to even look at you again after they've had sex with you. I think that's tough. That was tough for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think I was lucky, again, having this great friend, Stephen, because he had that lovely conversation with me very early on. He said, just, in a sense, just because we've had sex a couple of times doesn't mean that we're married. So I was able to kind of go, like I did have a very romantic idea of falling in love and all of those things. And I held on to that for a while. But then it was a really great conversation to go, this isn't what it needs to be. So I really, really, really got into anonymous sex. Like I really, really got into it because it was, And so I jettisoned romance fairly soon as part of my identity.
So how do you handle a situation where you've had sex with someone and then the next time you see them, they don't even want to acknowledge that you exist?
Well, there are two things to do. I mean, obviously, if you think that they're the total dreamboat, then you do want to crawl into a ball and just crumple up and feel horrible. So that's, I will certainly crumple up is strategy number one. You can't handle that one. But the other one is if you don't really care about them that much, I always go, hi, how you going? What's up? That sounds aggressive. I'm actually more kind of going, it
doesn't sound aggressive at all.
Okay.
Hello.
You could be really hostile. You go, hello, remember me?
Oh, okay.
Like you could make it like a threat. Whereas it was more like I kind of, I'm really excited for my students to listen into this conversation because I'm selling lots of things about myself here. But swimming is one of the things I like to do. So in Sydney in particular, I'd had lots of sex in the showers in various swimming pools. And
so what came first then, your love for swimming or your love for having sex in showers?
Oh, they're intertwined. They're completely intertwined. Certainly I started swimming a lot more once I realised you could have sex in the showers, certainly. But now I don't have sex with any of the people I swim with, but the swimming is still remains, so that's different.
But there's always the hope, right? There's always the hope.
Oh, not with these guys, no.
Oh, okay.
I don't really know.
Okay, well, let's leave that behind. So you were saying you were having sex in showers.
And then you would see them the next day because obviously you're swimming in the pool again. You can't just not go to that pool ever again. And so what I would do in those situations is that I would say, hello, how you going? It's fine. Like we're not having to do it again. But I would just sort of, by acknowledging them and saying hello, but then not kind of hello and then leading forward as if we're going to do it again, just to sort of kind of go hello and then it's actually kind of nice because then you can end up, maybe 3 months down the track having a chat and it doesn't matter. So I always, my thing is always to lean into slightly uncomfortable situations, and particularly if somebody is pulling that kind of rank on me that they're being so cool. I just kind of go, I can't pull that rank. I can't be cooler than you. I can't be more aloof than you. So I'm going to use my dagginess to just say, doesn't matter. Like, just be who you want to be. So that's how I would do it, and I certainly would do that.
But what if you do
Yeah.
that and they still blank you?
Oh, then you go, fuck them. Like, that's their issue.
Okay,
I've made an
right.
offer. That's how I dealt with it. You still have the option then to crumple up, but usually if I'd made that move, because it's quite a brave thing to do, I'm already riding on that courage. So then I would just go, oh, well, they're an asshole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another friend of mine, Richard, used to call APTs, arrogant poofed tools. They're just that thing where they're too cool to be even, you know, why would you want to be friends with them? They're just that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so.
yeah. And it's never that I want to be friends with people because, like, who wants to be friends
No,
with
no,
people?
no, no,
Like,
that's exactly right.
But
No,
it's
friends,
just,
horrible, yeah.
and I recognize as well that it's more about them than it is about me. But it's just that whole, like, lack of, like, stripping you of your humanity almost. And that sounds really dramatic. But, like, you know, acting as though you don't even exist, I find that really galling.
Oh, yeah, no, it's horrible. It's like it again, the idea of facing hostility with a kind of kindness
Yeah.
is often, I suppose that's my way of dealing with power, is to go, you're being an idiot with your power play, so I'm not going to buy into that story. And then if they reject you, I can tell you a particular moment where I'd had sex with somebody, and then 3 or 4 years later, and I put on a lot of weight in my late 20s, and I remember them seeing me on a train and me going, oh, there's that guy, and him not even looking at me and dismissing me, but looking completely through me, that I wasn't even there, that didn't even exist, you know what I mean, because I was a different person. And I do remember thinking, God, I'm that now. I am not good invisible like I was, but just, I've now lost all charm. But again, why dwell on that when you can build on the joy that's in you, or the strength? God, I'm sounding like a ridiculous
No,
song, but I'm
it's
meaning.
really interesting, though, that we give other people so much power, because in that situation, like from the way you've told it, at least, he could have been in his own world then. Like
Absolutely,
it had
yeah.
nothing to do with you necessarily, but you've
Exactly.
taken away from that non-interaction that there's something about your value in that.
Yeah.
Oh, people are exhausting. Why are we like
Yeah,
this?
no. Well, this is why I moved to Wollongong. This is why I'm a country person. You don't have to deal with all of this. It's much better to just be with. And I'm very lucky because I'm also very happily married. So that's kind of a nice aspect of it too, that I can be a little bit more relaxed and confident because I've got this wonderful person in my life. So yeah, and my beautiful dogs. So I can say all these things now because of all that. But I don't know. Yeah, you're right. Why do we give that value to people? Well, and part of the reason is, I think, because some of these spaces that we're talking about do set it up that you are essentially ogling everybody, and the value is on everybody looking at who's there and who isn't there. And again, about the Albury, to go back to this, is that the groping that happened when he entered the room almost had nothing to do with who was going past. It was just a kind of generous,
Like a hazing ritual or
all-purpose.
something.
Yeah, it was even much nicer than that. It was just like, you walk past, you get a little grope on your bum, and it was sort of just a nice little, I've entered the club. That we're all part of this community of groping. Where it wasn't like, I'm going to grope you, but I'm not going to grope you, like that kind of stuff. So, again, I liked it.
So did you partake in the groping?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So obviously, my first visit, I was not a groper, but I would say probably within 6 months, I was enjoying. So sometimes you would grope kind of at kind of chest level. You could grope there, and sometimes it would be groping someone's bum. It wouldn't, there were certain off-limit areas, but you wouldn't, because it was a friendly grope.
Not
It wasn't
many,
actually yeah. It was fine.
A friendly grope.
It was it was a generous thing. It's like, oh, hi, welcome. Like a handshake.
So it's like how sports people like pat each other on the butt.
Oh, God, yeah, no, exactly like that, yeah.
So you're saying we should normalize groping people's asses?
I'm saying we should normalise touching. I don't like to be touched very much at all, but it's probably because it means so much. No, I'm not a big fan of just if you don't want to be groped, I don't think you should be groped.
Wait, hang
but
on.
I think
Let's just pick up on this statement you've just made. You're not a fan of touching because you think it means so much.
Well, it is loaded. So if you are in a situation, wow, this is turning into a really great therapy session. I really appreciate the fact that you're talking me through this. I didn't realise how deep this would get. But
I'm sorry.
No, I'm really happy to talk about this. It's fine. But I have to think it through. I do think that if you, in certain situations, touching means different things. I think that if it becomes a thing which is about openness and generosity, then that's a good thing. But if in certain situations, and I can think about this in terms of if somebody you really liked, and again, I'm using this kind of high school terminology about this, but I don't know how else to talk about it.
Because you mean like, you don't mean like.
Yeah, no, I mean like. Do you like me? Yes, no. Do you want to go to the milk bar with me? Like, if somebody I was attracted to, and they were potentially available because they had the same sexuality as me, if they touched me on the knee, I would go, ooh, because it has the potential to mean something. Or mean something in that, like I could buy into that and that could become something bigger. So I think we could normalise it so that it doesn't necessarily have to mean everything when you touch somebody else. But again, this is all about being comfortable with being touched, and some people aren't. I think the pat on the back of my straight friends and the groping experience, they were both completely non-meaningful, except to say you're part of the community. And it was never anything sexual in any kind of way. It wasn't lingering. It was just a kind of, oh yeah, you have an ass. Yes, that's nice. That's what it was.
But so were there ever any times when you went and they didn't grope you and then you felt rejected?
No, I don't think so. I think the whole point was that it was just everybody, whoever you were. But look, and the really sad thing is that the Albury is now turned into like a Puma sneaker shop or something. Like it doesn't exist anymore. And so I think maybe if it was still around in the 2000s, it possibly the groping would have become less or different. But certainly all the times I went, I was in my 20s, so there was no doubt that I would get groped. But also I don't think anybody ever got through that space without being touched affectionately, shall we say.
Yeah, touching is a weird thing.
Yeah.
That's not a great statement to make. It doesn't really say anything. Anyway, so you said earlier that the Albury was a place where you could be whoever you wanted to be. And you also said that coming to Sydney, you wanted to have that opportunity to be who you are. How did the Albury help you become that person?
It certainly made me feel safe, but it also gave me a way in to being an adult. The walking up the street and seeing it is part of that narrative. The relaxing is part of that narrative. I think it was a really good experience for me to go, oh, this isn't a serious thing. Like I don't have to come and study to be gay. I don't have to, learn all the proper codes properly and learn what handkerchief I have to wear and all those things. It's just you doing what you're doing and just being you. And I think that's what it was. That it was just, it doesn't matter. And I'm a big nerd as well. Like, I study everything. Like, if I have to learn something, I study up on it really carefully. And so it was really good to go, you don't have to study to be gay. You can just be it and sit around and have a drink and hang out with your friends. And that's what being gay is. I think that's what it taught me. It just made me go, just relax and enjoy yourself.
Do you have any memories of the Albury Hotel or clubbing from your own queer scene that you want to share? Well, if you do, I would love to hear all about it. So why not get in touch? Go to lostspacespodcast.com and find the section Share a Lost Space to tell me all about what it is you got up to. And I would also really like to hear about who you got up to it with, if you know what I mean. Sorry, that sounded so skeezy. Please don't judge me too harshly. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where my handle is Lost Spaces Pod. Also, make sure to check the show notes for this episode to find a link to Joshua's book, The Flight of Birds, a novel in 12 stories, which you must go and get now. Okay? Capiche? Understood? Good. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate if you took the time to subscribe, leave a review on your podcast platform, or just tell somebody or some other people who you think would enjoy what we talk about on this show. My name is Kay Anderson, and you have been listening to Lost Spaces.